Okay, so I think we are live. As everybody's joining, let me know if for any reason you can't hear me on the audio. But welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to another Cardano Q&A live stream, and welcome back to Woodland Pools. So today, last week, perfect. The audio is working fantastic. So last week was the last week of the month, which means Cardano 360. So here are the things we're going to take a look at today. We're going to go through the chapters of Cardano 360, and you can actually see in the description right now, I've already linked straight to all these different chapters. So if you want to dig into any more detail about any of these, you can check them all out directly. Also, if you're watching this on the replay, I'll add chapters to this live stream as well, so you'll be able to jump around and jump straight to the parts that you're interested in. So for those that are joining us here live, let us know where you're joining from and any questions that you have. And as we move through the stuff today, we'll go through the questions as we come across them. So first thing we'll get into is Cardano 360. Then I want to take a look at this blockchain education program by the Cardano Foundation. And then we will take a look at some of the updates coming out from the Hydra team. So let's go ahead and get started with Cardano 360. So first thing here was a recap of CIP-1694 workshop. So this was the one that we had talked about a couple of weeks ago when it was actually happening. And the CIP-1694 workshop was people from all over the community, and they all came together. And the idea here was to discuss not specifically what the Cardano governance or constitution was going to be, but talking about a framework around how this process was going to happen. So we had people from all over the community. You see a lot of familiar faces in these clips. And then, so they went through basically the process, the methodology that they went through, how they were all sitting. Let's see if I can find a good spot here. How they were all kind of sitting on these different tables here. Let's see if there we go. So you can see how they were kind of all had this like a round table set up here, and they were all, doing their different group stuff, and they would come together, and there's a lot of whiteboarding about where things would go. And as a reminder for everybody that was tracking this, this is just the first of many workshops that are going to happen. I think Pi actually just hosted one recently. And so if you're interested in getting involved in CIP 1694 and governance stuff, keep a lookout for all these other workshops that are going to be going on. The folks that were in this room that were part of this initial kickoff are going to be the ones facilitating those conversations and those follow-up CIP 1694 discussions. So so that was the workshop recap. It was cool to get some insight and be able to see actually what it kind of looked like with all the folks in the room there. After that, the next section that came after this was a roundtable with Charles and some of the folks who were at the workshop, talking about the highlights, the focus of what the workshop was, and some of their main takeaways. So I'll let you jump into that one if you want to check it out. Then from there, we had an interview with I think it was the CTO of Wanchain. So Wanchain is interesting because what they're doing is, as it says here, an interoperability solution. And what they're trying to do is make it that they can be sort of a an inter-blockchain bridge, but more than just like a specific, like a bespoke bridge that's made from one chain to another. Their goal is to be able to bridge multiple chains, or kind of like all the things. And their goal, and the way that they're doing it is interesting, is that they're doing it in a decentralized and non-custodial way. So I want to get more information about this, but the notion of it being non-custodial is that they're not the ones that have a hold on anything. They're just sort of facilitating the bridging of things back and forth. And then the decentralized portion is that anybody could actually be a chain node operator to facilitate these interactions between the different chains. So again, this is the first, I guess it's only the second or third time I've heard of Wanchain, but the first time I've seen an interview with them. So I'm waiting to hear more details about how this is going to work. But one of the things that he went to that was kind of interesting here was that he was talking about that he made a good point that the notion of interoperability between chains is kind of an overloaded term. And so the way they're seeing it is that interoperability should be sort of a fully scoped thing that should be not just transferring assets, but potentially also transferring data between chains, and actually making it that you can have fully running smart contracts and applications on, let's say, Cardano and on Ethereum, and then have those things be basically talking back and forth the same way how using the internet, I'm on a Mac, but you might be watching me on a Linux or a PC Windows machine, and it doesn't matter to our computers. We just all use the internet to send and receive this data back and forth over TCP/IP and HTTP and stuff like that. And so their goal with Wanchain is to have that kind of interoperability between chains and be sending things back and forth so that it's more agnostic and people aren't really concerned about what chain they're on specifically, or even maybe more importantly from the interoperability standpoint, not so concerned with what chain they're interfacing with. Like I could see where maybe if you preferred working with Cardano, you could potentially have an interface for an app that is primarily on Polygon or on Ethereum, but if using something like Wanchain, you have a sort of, call it a front end for lack of a better term, but let's say an entry portal on Cardano, you could then interface with it on Cardano, let's say that you're holding more of your assets or whatever, and then through something like Wanchain, you could be sending assets and data and that whole interoperability cycle back to maybe where the primary running of this application is on a totally different chain. So kind of a cool idea. Actually, not kind of, a very cool idea. And I think that this is the kind of thing we're going to be seeing more and more. I really believe that like as we see not only the volatility, you know, from like a price standpoint of blockchains over the years, I really think aside from that volatility kind of like coming down, I hope that we'll also see some of the tribalism will be dying down over the years and people will be less concerned about what chain that they're sort of like religiously in love with, and it'll be more about, you know, which one they use for different more practical reasons, and then the lines between them will be kind of blurred. And like the same way how, for example, for your bank or for your favorite like application, you don't necessarily know if it's written in Python or Go or Haskell or something under the hood. It just works. I'm hoping that if we build good enough infrastructure and plumbing, we'll get to a point where people are not so concerned in terms of what chain they're specifically on, but things just kind of just work. So that's the idea. Hey, look who's here. What's going on, Patty? Aw, man. I don't know why it does this, but sometimes for some people's avatars, it doesn't like to show them. But good to see you, Patty. So, yeah, so let's continue on. And let's see what was next we had. Oh, yeah, dynamic peer-to-peer. So this is a good one. So Duncan Coots was talking about how dynamic peer-to-peer is going to work. We talked about this the other day about how the... Here we go. Let's do this little diagram here we can show in the meantime. So we were talking the other day about how this is going to work. If we imagine that these two little guys are relays on the network, this is a real test that they actually ran on their own test net. This is probably a couple years ago, almost 3 years old now at this point, or 2 years old. But you can see here how these are relays dynamically finding other relays in the network through just sort of an organic peer-to-peer finding of the topology here. And they're kind of just bouncing around, finding other relays to connect with without needing to use something like we use right now with Topology Updater, which sort of is a centralized place that we all go to. It's a fantastic service, but it's centralized through this one service that's run that kind of gives us stake pool operators like a list of potential people to connect to. The idea of peer-to-peer is that we'll be able to, that relays for stake pools will be able to find other relays dynamically on the fly. So the way that this actually works right now, if we take a look at this other little diagram, is we've talked about this a few times before, but if these are the block producing nodes, these are the BPs here, the core nodes for any stake pool, they always sit behind some relays, and then these relays talk to each other, kind of what we see here, but the way that they find each other can be done in any number of ways. You can have this be hard-coded, you can have it like we're doing right now with Topology Updater, or the idea now with peer-to-peer. What Duncan was talking about in this video is that this first iteration of peer-to-peer that we're going to see right now is going to help facilitate relay nodes to find each other specifically for stake pools. But the idea moving forward in the future iterations is that this will actually help any nodes on the network find each other. So what we'll see is that it won't just be relay nodes finding each other, but anybody, any consumer running a full node, like if you're running dataless on your desktop, you will actually be able to use peer-to-peer as well, and you might be communicating with relay nodes from stake pool operators around the network. So really cool stuff with this. There was a couple little talking points that they put up. Yeah, so we see, see if I just passed it here. Yeah, there we go. So right now we're automating how stake pool operators connect with each other. And then there was a few things here they were talking about. Yeah, so the idea being is that if the pools are all dynamically finding each other, it makes it a lot harder to do denial of service attacks because there's not a central point that you can target because everybody is dynamically sort of picking up and dropping connections on the fly depending on their performance. And then also the scalability aspect, because the reduced block diffusion time. So if you think about the time it takes for blocks to propagate through the network, with Topology Updater and things like that, it's sort of a best guess on which blocks you can connect, which other relays you can connect to and stuff like that. With something like this, the nature of how these relays all find each other is specifically based on how quickly they're communicating back and forth. There's a notion of hot, warm, and cold peers, and there's this list that's constantly maintained. And then all the other relays that are on this list constantly get moved up and down from hot to warm, warm to cold, and up and down, back and forth, so that the ones you have in your hot peers, the ones you can swap in and out really quickly like we're seeing here, those are always ones that you have strong connections to and low latency for sending messages back and forth. So a lot of good things come from this, including the obvious thing of additional decentralization, where relays are just finding themselves and don't need to have anybody, not IOG, not even community members who have done a huge service to provide this throughout this time. But this will be a big step in decentralization, our continued journey through decentralization to have true peer-to-peer networking. So yeah, really cool stuff here. Continuing on, we had some community conversations here. There was Aiken, the Cardano Blockchain Infrastructure Alliance, and then Clay Nation. So I guess it's pronounced Aiken. If you haven't heard about Aiken, the TLDR about Aiken that's really cool is that their goal, let's see if it says it here, yeah, it's a pure functional programming language, but their goal is designed to improve the development experience on Cardano. Let me see if I've, before we dive into that, let's see if I missed anything here. So, hi from Connecticut. Sorry I missed a lot of streams, working a lot. Yeah, I get that. And we also then moved into Monday afternoons, Monday evenings instead of doing them on Sundays. So hello, Joe. Good to see you. And Manuel, peer-to-peer networking is cool. Any other blockchains doing this? Not that I know off the top of my head. Let me know, for those of you guys that are in the stream with us right now, do you know of any other chains that are doing true peer-to-peer networking right now of nodes on the network? And also, I guess, and also if you're watching this in the replay, let me know in the comments. I can't think of any right now they're doing it, but that's a good question. That'd be a good thing to look up. Sweet. So let's get back to here. So Aiken, you've probably heard from people who are coming into the Cardano ecosystem. Sebastian, or rather Santiago from TX Pipe has talked about this on 360, and we've covered it, about how the ramp up for Haskell and Plutus is a pretty steep one. I mean, I've gone through it the past couple of years. It's a very steep ramp. And so the idea is, how do we make it that you can have languages that can provide as much of your things like type safety and good testing and things that you can do, but make it easier to learn, and also are more, let's say, purpose-built specifically for Cardano. Because Plutus, yes, is a language that was built for Cardano, but it was built on Haskell. And actually, you can, if you talk to people, for example, that are like lifelong Haskellers, when they come in and they use Plutus, you see that you don't necessarily use some of the most like advanced concepts of Haskell to do Plutus, but at the same time, it's weird. It's a weird sort of mix, because you'll see that you'll be using, like, let's say, intermediate Haskell to make Plutus run, but then for some of the things, there'll be like really, really nuanced, esoteric kind of like edge case Haskell stuff that's used to make it all compile and run in Plutus core. So it's kind of this weird duality of like relatively straightforward Haskell and then really, really corner case kind of stuff that you need to also do. So it all works, and it's a beautiful language, but the goal with something like Aiken is to make it that this ramp up can be shorter and people can be more productive more quickly. And the whole idea is that this is a purpose-built language specifically for Cardano smart contracts. I've heard that it's very Rust-like, which is cool. I've been writing quite a bit of Rust lately at Book.io. I'm a full-stack developer for Book.io, for those that aren't aware. And Rust is a fantastic language, so I'm waiting to hear more about Aiken as it comes out. Right now, the best way to get in touch with them, let me see if they have this stuff down here. They're saying the best way to get a hold of them is on their Discord. Yeah, here we go. So here's some Aiken information for those that want to learn more. Here's their page and their Discord. Right now, it's still very actively in development. I know also, too, that Matthias K-Torz, who works for the Cardano Foundation, he was here in the video. Oh, that's Charles. Give me 1 second. Of course, when you zoom in on Charles, we have no idea how long we'll be here for. So let's see if we can skip ahead. Yeah, still going. There he is. Cool. So this, you might know him as K-Torz on Twitter. But he is, I want to get his title right here. See if, here we go. Yeah, so Matthias is the technical director for the Cardano Foundation. And so he works on different open source things. He's obviously leading the technical direction for the Cardano Foundation, and he spends a lot of his time working on Aiken. So even though we see there's some of these other folks that are the ones that are talking about it, Matthias spends a lot of his time working on this. We have a lot of very smart people working on this to make it that people can come up to speed and ramp up and be able to develop and be productive on Cardano as quickly as possible. Now, this is huge, not just for developers, but because for all of us that are interested and engaged in the ecosystem, the easier it is for developers to build things, then the more products that we'll have, and then the adoption sort of compounds after that. And the other piece too is when you think about things being built, it's not necessarily just the end user applications that are built, but any amount of infrastructure, any helper libraries, anything like that, then makes it easier for other projects to spin up and get their things going. So this kind of stuff is really, really important. Patty says let me click out of the way here. Patty says that the Cosmos side chain on World Mobile is using as PRP similar to Cardano, but it's not necessarily done exactly the same as it requires a node to be. Okay, gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, so they're doing a Cosmos sidechain right now, right, Patty? So I'm curious. Actually, and Patty, you've been following the World Mobile stuff very closely lately. I'm admittedly, I gotta catch back up on that. I was chatting with the guy from Clover on Twitter about I need to dig in more into the Cardano alliance. What's the latest big news on World Mobile, Patty? Let me know what's going on. I saw, yeah, Patty had a good tweet about I liked your heat map. Let me pull this up. This is kind of cool. Let me see if I can find it here. Of course, it's this Doge thing. You are right on time. You showed up right when you needed to. Here you are. Welcome to the live stream. You are here live with us. We'll do a quick aside here for World Mobile. If my thing decides to load here, let's pull up. I want to show this heat map that Patty tweeted out. Where's everybody else joining us from, by the way, while we're pulling this up? We had a Connecticut earlier. I know Patty's joining us from Ireland. Patty, what's your thing here? I can never find you if I just do this. This doesn't work. I tried searching for Shammy McShamface and that didn't work either. Oh, here we go. Perfect. That worked. So yeah, I want to show you guys this heat map that Patty tweeted out. If you're not following Patty on Twitter, you should be. What was it? Or if you have it and you want to link it for me, that'll work too. Yeah, if you guys haven't been to WMT Scan, man, it is unreal how slow Twitter is today. Jesus. Here we go. But I know there's another one here that. But in any case, we'll just look at. Here we go. Perfect. Yeah. So this right here is from WMT Scan. You can actually see right now the heat maps from the air nodes being run right now on World Mobile. We can look at this in real time as well if you want. But it's pretty cool to see how this has been building out and seeing in real time real service being provided on the World Mobile network. Is it under maintenance? Perfect. All right. Well, we'll come back to that. But yeah, so we're up to 281 air nodes right now. Nice. Cool. Yeah, sweet. All right. Well, let's continue on. Where were we? All right, we were talking about Aiken. Okay, so then we also had here in Cardano 360, there was the Cardano Blockchain Infrastructure Alliance. Let me pull that up. They were talking about that here. And then at the end was Lena from Clan Nation talking about some of the collaborations and videos and things that they're going to be putting out. They're working with Snoop Dogg and doing a lot of cool stuff there. They're coming out with a game that you can play and that you can have your claymate walking around in, so that should be pretty cool. But yeah, so all the timestamps for all the Cardano 360 stuff is linked below. If you want any more info about that, check those links down below. We're going to talk about the Blockchain Alpha Education Program next. Yeah, exactly, right when I want to show WLMT Scan. Come on, guys. maintenance page. Perfect. Right when I want to show you guys live, the air nodes is down for maintenance. Okay, so we'll get to this in a second. Let's see what we've missed here. So, Network with Entrepreneurs is calling in from Chicago. Hello, Zartsnarf. Good to see you, man. Thoughts on the need for a stablecoin aggregator on Cardano? Yeah, I mean, I think that before we start getting to stablecoin aggregators, I want to see our stablecoins getting listed on major exchanges. I want to see Anzen's USDA come out. Yeah, I mean, we've gotten some road time now with IUSD and with JED. I think an aggregator would be nice. So I'm guessing that the idea with that is that you kind of, it's sort of like a synthetic blend of all of them. Is that the idea? So that like at any given time, you're kind of like hedging your risk on any of them not being exactly $1. I think, yeah, that'd be cool. But I just really want to have us get some runway on our stable coins here and just have people like using them. Let's get them listed. It'd be nice to see the Cardano Foundation lobbying to get some of these things listed on major exchanges. But yeah, I guess one step at a time. Although that'd be nice. So speaking of the Cardano Foundation, David Taylor tweeted this out about the Blockchain Education Alpha program. So this is cool. So if you want to learn more about Cardano and how the blockchain works, let me see if I can make this image bigger. Yeah, cool. So this is kind of tough to see, but yeah, you can't really see it very well. Let me see if let's scroll up here a little bit. Dang, there's like hold on. Let's see if I scroll up if you can see this any better. Oh, come on. Yo, Twitter is unbelievably slow today. So, but the idea though of this, while this loads up, the idea of this blockchain course, oh, here we go, is it's not for developers, it's for anybody that wants to understand more about how blockchains work, and specifically Cardano. And this is hard to read, so I'll kind of tell you what it says here. This has some clear text. It just says hello, and then it goes to an encryption algorithm with a private key. And you have your ciphertext on the other side. So their idea is that they want for anybody that is interested in blockchain, and let's say you're invested in it or whatever, and you just want to learn more about how the technology of blockchain works for this thing that you're investing your interest and your time and maybe some of your money. The notion of this blockchain education program is to help anybody understand this stuff better. So I think that was kind of a cool initiative on the Cardano Foundation's part. So I'm going to share this. This will also be in the description, but this is the Cardano Foundation education page. So if you want to get, right now they're in their alpha phase right now. People that signed up at the Cardano Summit are going through this program right now. If you're interested in learning more about how Cardano and how blockchain work, and again, this is open to anyone, not developers, it's open to anybody who wants to learn. Yeah, blockchain fundamentals, consensus algorithms, cryptography, Cardano. I signed up just because as a developer, I'm always down to learn more about cryptography. It's a fascinating field. So check that out. Okay, if not Cardano, what other layer one would be interested in talking about? Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough, because you've got, I don't know. I would probably either talk more about Ethereum or one of the, well, actually, Algorand's doing really cool stuff. And I think John Woods is extremely talented and intelligent. And it was cool to see him going from being sort of the interim CTO at Cardano and then moving over to Algorand. I know I've also heard really good things about Ergo, so I'd probably look into Ergo, Algorand, and then from there, if those didn't exist, then I might look into some layer 2 on Ethereum. But that's the thing, is that it's just so hard, especially now because we're multi-chain. We're doing multi-chain work at Book.io. It's so hard. You get so used to how nice it is to have the deterministic predictability of Cardano, of knowing how much a transaction is going to cost, knowing if it's going to go through or not, knowing that assets actually residing inside of a wallet versus just being like a value on a script somewhere. I think I'd have a really hard time going from this over to Ethereum land, where a lot of those things are a lot more fluid and there's a lot less of those guarantees. So yeah, I guess I'll scratch that. I probably wouldn't. Even if Cardano wasn't around, I don't think I'd be doing an Ethereum layer 2. I'd probably be doing one of the newer ones, like Ergo, which I've heard really good things about, or Algorand. So yeah, good question. All right, so cool, that's that. Before we get onto the Hydra stuff, we're going to talk about that in a second. Before we get to that, I wanted to remind you guys to sign up and come join us in warm, sunny Colorado at Rare Evo. It's a really, really great conference. Last year it was called Rare Bloom. Moving forward, it's going to be called Rare Evo. If you want to come, if you use code Woodland10 at checkout, you will get 10% off, and then I'm going to use all of the proceeds that come in from using that affiliate code, and we're going to use that to help others attend that wouldn't be able to attend. So if you want to come out, meet in person, I think it'll be really fun. A lot of great speakers, a really, really good time, awesome networking event, and a great time of year in August to be here in warm, sunny Colorado. Come hang out and join us and use code Woodland10. I want to remember to do that because I always forget. Okay, so with that, the Hydra monthly meeting. See, I'm not missing any other questions. Great. Okay, so the Hydra monthly meeting is the next thing that I wanted to make sure that we took a look at. Now, we've been talking about Hydra for a really long time, and we talked about it even in the last live stream. And the goal, obviously, of Hydra is to be able to do to improve Cardano scalability. But this is going to be for, as we've talked about a few times now, for a known set of actors, like a small group. Let's say like a handful of people, to be able to do a lot of transactions back and forth between each other, and then when that is sort of settled and done, do a final settlement to the layer 1. So this was a little over a week ago that this meeting was originally held, but I wanted to show you guys here. Actually, you know what? Here's what we'll do. They were first showing this high draw, is what they were showing here, and now this is cool because this was actually on mainnet. When this meeting was going on, you were able to come to hydra.encoding.at, and you can come here and pick a color and draw on this page. And this was everybody drawing in real time. And then all of these entries that were being drawn on here, all of this was being facilitated by the Hydra head and sending that back and forth and having that immediate finality between the different nodes. And then once it was done and the head was closed, that was the single thing that was sent to the blockchain, was the metadata associated with the final drawing here. That was the only thing. So you see every single one of these entries, all of this was done nearly instantaneously on the Hydra head. And then at the very, very end, let's see, it's almost done now if I remember correctly. Yeah, here we go. So every single one of these you can imagine being a transaction, an auction bid or something like that. So we're literally seeing hundreds of them passing over like these hours or whatever else. Yeah, here we go. So this is where it finishes. And so then the very, very end, the last thing is just this final representation of this picture. Here was sort of the code as it was flying by in terms of like what was being painted where. And the final representation of the picture was the only thing that made it to the blockchain. And then everything else that we saw in between was all just messages between the Hydra heads, tracking the state at that isomorphic layer 2 state channel. And then only the very last picture was drawn down. So there's a visual representation that you can think of if, again, you can imagine all of those being transactions or sending any kind of arbitrary payloads of data back and forth. And that was being run on mainnet right now. So that was really cool. So here was just some release notes on what happened in that release, but I wanted to show, was it here? No, that's some other stuff they're working on. Here we go. So this was the big announcement they had, that Hydra itself is compatible and ready for mainnet now. And so what they're looking for right now is that they're still doing it on the 0.x versus saying like 1.0. They're still calling it 0.x because they're waiting to see real world use cases. 1.0 is when they say, okay, not only is the code ready to be deployed on mainnet, but we've worked with some industry partners and some projects in Cardano and found real world use cases that we think are going to be useful. And we have proven that those things can solve those problems. And with those things and this functioning use case, now we're going to call it 1.0. But it is ready to be used on the mainnet right now. So one of the other things they talked about here, let me see if I can find where it was that they had said it, because what they want now that the code is ready, oh, this is actually really cool too. Hydra for payments is another thing. Hydra Pay is an open source project that they've spun off of Hydra. This is actually really cool. So the idea is that if you think about it, a Hydra head can be spun up and then you do all those things back and forth and you spin it back down. But the length of time that it's up for can be arbitrary. So Colin was talking about this cool use case here where you can spin up a head and you can do a long running connection. So let's say, for example, the example that he used, let's say there's like a coffee shop down the street from your house and you go there every single day. You could use Hydra Pay, and what would happen is from your wallet and then the destination wallet address for the coffee shop, you would spin up a long-running Hydra head, basically an open channel that would be long-running and open on the network. And of course, you don't necessarily have to have your wallet open that whole time, but the connection is always open. And so what you can do is you can just over days and weeks go and buy whatever you want and have that near instantaneous value transfer that Hydra Head facilitates. And then let's say at the end of the week or even in a day or whatever, that store would spin down the Hydra Head, and then all the balances at that time would be recorded to the ledger. But the whole time that it's up and running, for every time that you go there, that payment would happen instantaneously. So that's kind of a near instantaneously. So that's kind of a cool use case. I'm trying to find where it was that they said here, but in any case, if I can't find it, basically where they're at now with the project, yeah, this is sort of when they went to Q&A. Where they're at with the project now is now what they really want is to have specific community use cases of, okay, so now how do we continue building Hydra out? And you let us know kind of thing on what should we be building. So, yeah. Anyway, so it's open source. What should they build next? It's up to the community, and now they're just waiting for community members to give that feedback on what are the things that should be built. So really, really cool stuff to see Hydra actually finally coming to fruition and seeing this actually build out and develop. All right. Oh yeah, so for the conference here, why the name change from Rare Bloom to Rare Evo? On the original iteration, the folks at the Bloom pool were also affiliated with it, and it was the guys that run the Rare pool and the guys that run the Bloom pool, so it's called Rare Bloom. And then the Bloom guys are also with Drip Drops and Token and a Doja and a bunch of other things, and so they were like, okay, we're just gonna focus on these things. And then the Rare guys were like, okay, we'll just keep running the conference, and so it turned into the Rare Evolution, and that is Rare Evo. Accelerate, good to see you, man. Hoping for a win, but alas, it was a draw. I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, cool. What time is it? Let's see here. Oh, cool. We're at exactly a half hour. All right. So, with that, if you have not given it a thumbs up yet, please do so on your way out the door. If you want to support the channel, the best way to do that is by delegating to the ASPEN stake pool. Yeah, this is cool. I think we're going to keep doing it this way, running it at about half an hour and just going through all of the updates for the week. Down below, we will have timestamps for everything. That's okay. I'm sorry for not tracking the joke. Let's go to full screen and move out of the way of my Cardano logo and say thank you, everybody, for coming out. Always a pleasure to do these things. We'll most likely do it again on next Monday. Let me know down below if there's any other topics that you want to make sure that we cover when we get together next Monday. And yeah, if nothing else, we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.